Final Fantasy, arguably one of the most consistently impressive series in gaming, has once again delivered the goods. With 16 main numbered releases and countless spin-offs, it's safe to say this franchise boasts one of the most extensive lineups in gaming history. As I dive into my third Final Fantasy review in just under 2 years of content creation, I find myself particularly excited for this one. A game I've been eagerly anticipating for the past 4 years, the second title in the multi-part Final Fantasy VII Remake, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Right from the get-go, without delving into spoilers, I want to note that this reimagining of what is widely considered to be one of the greatest games ever made is quite different from what we initially expected. Rather than simply remaking or readapting the original, Rebirth takes an approach that feels more like exploring an alternate reality, supplementing the original story rather than aiming to replace it altogether. Picking up directly from the events of Remake, Rebirth follows Cloud Strife and his party as they embark on a dual mission: to dismantle the tyranny of the megacorporation Shinra, and thwart Sephiroth, the legendary ex-Shinra soldier, from achieving his goal of obtaining the Black Materia. As our party embarks on this mission, they'll journey through several vast regions of the world, encountering new allies and facing unforeseen challenges along the way. Since Rebirth picks up directly after the events of Remake, playing the latter is essential before diving into Rebirth. Additionally, I highly recommend playing Crisis Core Reunion beforehand, as it introduces crucial characters and context that enrich your understanding of the relationships between characters, as well as the broader narrative. The gameplay in Rebirth feels like a natural refinement and evolution of its predecessor, building upon its action RPG combat mechanics. In addition to the 4 main playable characters from Remake, Rebirth expands your party roster to include Red 13, Yuffie, and a wee Scottish kitty cat.
You shouldn't come out to play with the big boys, Ian, because you're about to get a proper Scottish welcome.
Totaling 7 playable characters. This count excludes 2 characters playable only during specific parts of the story. Each character boasts unique weapons, skills, and combat styles, enabling you to customize your active party of 3 members according to your preferences and seamlessly switch between them during combat. As you discover new weapons for each character, equipping them will unlock new abilities. By using these abilities until they're mastered, characters can retain them regardless of their currently equipped weapon. Weapons can even be equipped with passive skills associated with them, with additional slots becoming available as your weapon level increases. Additionally, weapons and equipment provide various stat boosts and materia slots. Materia are orbs that grant characters access to a range of abilities, spells, summons, and stat boosts. One particularly crucial materia I highly recommend always having access to is the Assess materia, which allows you to discern your enemy's weaknesses so that you can strategically stagger them and unleash devastating damage. The most effective way to deal massive damage in combat is by utilizing limit breaks, which serve as your character's ultimate attacks. As you engage in battles, your limit break meter gradually charges up. Once fully charged, you can unleash these devastating attacks. While many combat mechanics from Remake are retained in Rebirth, the latter introduces an emphasis on team-up actions, known as synergy skills and abilities. Synergy skills are basic attacks or defensive maneuvers performed by 2 characters. These actions help accelerate the filling of the ATB meter for both characters, allowing for quicker access to spells or abilities. Synergy abilities, on the other hand, are unlocked by regularly using abilities and spells during battles. Utilizing synergy abilities not only unleashes powerful collaborative attacks or combat boosts, but also raises the limit levels of those respective characters, allowing for an even stronger limit break attack. Spells and abilities can be assigned shortcuts for quick use in battle, or accessed through the action menu, slowing down combat time, allowing for seamless transition between active action combat and traditional RPG menu selections, effectively managing combat pace. Another avenue for enhancing stats and abilities is the newly introduced Folio system, reminiscent of Final Fantasy X's Sphere Grid. Players utilize skill points acquired through gameplay to purchase a range of enhancements, including new synergy abilities. At first glance, all of these menus and customization options may seem overwhelming, but they quickly become second nature with a touch of practice.
We're talking about practice, man.
Combat options aren't the only thing that expanded in this entry. The map is notably larger than that of Remake, now transformed into an expansive open world featuring 7 distinct regions, brimming with supplemental side content. The unique environments in each region demand an expansion of traversal mechanics, primarily, but not exclusively enabled by the various regional chocobos. You've got your basic run-of-the-mill chocobo, the climbing chocobo, the mushroom jumper, the gliding chocobo, and the one that really should see a urologist. One common mistake many open-world games make is overwhelming players with meaningless side content. Final Fantasy XVI was certainly guilty of this. However, in Rebirth, every aspect feels purposeful and complements the main story. This includes quest and dialogue options that influence Cloud's relationships with other characters, leading to minor narrative variations. Side content can be broken down into 3 distinct categories: side quests, world intel, and minigames. Each region offers a variety of tasks contributing to world intel, such as activating towers, treasure hunts, unlocking Moogle emporiums, completing combat assignments, scanning life springs, discovering summon sanctuaries for easier summon acquisition and upgrades, and acquiring proto-relics, which unravel into a captivating side adventure of its own. Minigames are a prominent feature in Rebirth. This game is loaded with them, so much so that it wouldn't be surprising if Square Enix released a standalone minigame collection, or even one solely focused on Queen's Blood. Queen's Blood was yet another piece of side content that ended up becoming a whole story of its own, unfolding as you challenge players from across the various regions of the game. Between its story and gameplay, Queen's Blood reminded me a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh! If you're not a fan of minigames, don't worry, the story doesn't dwell on them for too long. However, as someone who typically isn't drawn to this sort of thing, but wanted to explore all of the side content, I found that some of the minigames were surprisingly enjoyable. Queen's Blood notably became quite addictive as I unlocked new cards and started building themed decks. As I mentioned earlier, Rebirth's map is massive and is loaded with tons of content that enriches the story and feels well placed in the world. The open world design of this game serves as a canvas for a series known for crafting stunning environments, allowing for the expansion and deeper exploration of locations from the original game. The obvious graphical improvements since the 90s also lend themselves to much more emotional and cinematic storytelling, as demonstrated in Remake. Several scenes in Rebirth genuinely brought tears to my eyes. For a game brimming with content to love, I have to acknowledge a few flaws. First was the sound mixing.
Stop acting like you got an album coming out!
The music and ambient sounds often overpowered dialogue, making it difficult to hear. While it's possible to adjust the music volume in the settings, by default it was set to Christopher Nolan film. I should note that the issue wasn't as bad when I was using the PlayStation Pulse 3D headset, though I'd imagine any good set of stereo headphones should do the job. Another recurring issue I encountered was the lighting adjustments. When transitioning from well-lit areas to indoor or shadowed environments, the lighting took a few moments to adjust, leaving the environment very difficult to make out in that time. Additionally, decorative environmental junk such as rubble and steel boxes could be kicked about like styrofoam as you walk through them. I understand that this is to avoid obstructing movement, but it's really hard to ignore. Perhaps inconsequential in the larger scheme of things, it's also disheartening to have certain summon materia locked behind a digital purchase. While it's annoying enough to encounter content locked behind pre-orders, further restricting content specifically to the digital version is a particularly dubious move. But my biggest grievance with Rebirth was in 2 chapters of the Proto-Relic side story, which required completion of the 2 worst minigames. As someone who enjoys completing all story-related content and collecting everything in a game, I hated that a side quest narrative was gated behind minigames outside of the core gameplay loop. To make matters worse, success or failure often boiled down to sheer luck. Minor criticisms aside, to my memory, this may be the most fun I've had playing Final Fantasy. Between its rich and emotional storytelling and the depth of its combat system, the adventure never loses momentum. The banter between party members and the details in environments and side content provide the world a life of its own beyond the objectives of the main story. Replayability is abundant in Rebirth thanks to features like hard mode, chapter select, and the option to select costumes and narrative variants after initial completion. I enjoyed the hell out of Remake, and Rebirth surpasses it in every aspect, and I'm thrilled to see what the next installment has in store. Until then, I'm sure we'll see other Final Fantasy projects to help us pass the time. I love remasters, and what I crave above anything else is a Final Fantasy Tactics HD collection. It would also be great to see an updated version of Dirge of Cerberus, just as Crisis Core received. If there's anything you're hoping to see from the series moving forward, let me know down in the comments, and while you're at it, a like and subscribe is always appreciated. I've been Pungent Funk. Keep it funky, fellas.